This is Chris from Atlantic Outboard, and this is the digital delivery of your new Pursuit OS325. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you get on your boat is turn on your battery switches. So simply just turn them to on. A quick tip, if you're ever low on battery power and it's not enough to start the motors, try turning the batteries all the way to combined batteries. That'll use all the juice in all your batteries to at least get the motor started. Once the motors are started, it will the motors will actually charge those batteries. So once you have after you turn on your battery switch, you're going to want to come up to the helm. Make sure your safety lanyard is installed over the button here. It's a horseshoe shape, slides right on there. If you don't install that, your key will turn and the motors will crank, but you'll get a warning code on your Yamaha gauge. The motor will not start without the safety lanyard. So after you turn on your power supply, install your safety lanyard, put your key in the ignition. You could tilt your motors all the way down into the water and then turn the key. That'll give you time to let those warm up while you get the rest of the boat ready. Now, if you look at your dash here, you have all the components right in front of you. So you're going to have your horn, that's self-explanatory. Your navigation lights, if you're running at night, you're going to want to turn those on. You have cockpit lighting, so in the evenings or in the dark, you could illuminate your cockpit area. You have a blank accessory switch. If you ever had components down the road, the technician could wire it into that switch. You have an indirect light up above that'll illuminate the dash a little bit. It's a red light, so it doesn't obscure your vision, but you can still see what you need to see. You have hardtop lighting, so these lights will turn white, blue, or red. A quick tip on those is sometimes they will come out of sync. One will be red, one will be blue. All you got to do is hold the button down and it'll reset those and get them back in sync. You have spreader lights. Those are big illuminated Lumitech lights in the cockpit. Panel lighting, that'll actually turn on your compass light. Underwater lights. Now these are generic panels. Your boat may or may not have underwater lights, but you'll still have a switch for it. This boat is equipped with underwater lights, so that's how you would turn those on. Shade in and out. If you did get the power sunshade in the hardtop, that would be the switch to deploy that. Again, this is a generic panel. You may not get that option, but you'll still have a switch. You have your forward bilge pump. Now, this boat does have a forward bilge for where your hot water heater and your shower components would be. So there is a bilge pump to manually pump that out. You have an aft bilge pump. If there's a little residual water in your bilge, you can manually hit the button and it will pump that out. Now, these boats are all hardwired with the bilge pump to the battery. So even if the battery switch is off and there's water in one of these bilges, the float switch will kick on and pump it overboard. You have a washdown switch that will pressurize your saltwater system, so you could use a saltwater hose in the back, which I'll go over after. And you also have a freshwater switch. Now that'll pressurize your freshwater holding system. So for your shower, any freshwater components, your sink, you have to have that switch on to use any of the freshwater systems. Your live well, self-explanatory. You catch a fish, you throw it in your live well, you want to keep it alive, you just flip the live well switch on. You have port and starboard fish box button. Now if you rotate it forward, that'll pump the port box out. If you switch it back, that'll pump the starboard fish box out. So if you have any water in there, soapy water, fish scales, anything like that, you simply hit the switch and it'll pump those overboard using a diaphragm pump. Windshield washer. So if you have your freshwater switch on and you hit the windshield washer button, it'll actually spray fresh water onto that windshield to get any dried salt off. You have a switch for the port wiper for your passenger, and then you have a switch for your starboard wiper for your captain. There's a switch for open and close the vent. Up above in the windshield you have a vent. This would electronically open that to allow more fresh air in. Power steering. This boat is equipped with power steering. It does have a switch for it. I recommend just keeping that switch on at all times. Your bow thruster is here. To turn that on, you simply hold down the power button and it would turn on so you could basically use the bow thruster to operate the bow, move it away from the dock, closer to the dock. My tip is before you leave the dock or before you return to the dock, always power on your bow thruster. You may not need it all the time, but if you need it, it's good to have it on and ready to go. Behind this cover is your JL audio stereo. premium line JL. You can sync it with your smartphone for Bluetooth. If you ever have any trouble syncing that, I always reference to YouTube, and they'll have a 1-minute video quick walkthrough on how to sync. Most customers will sync it right away. Your displays for GPS will be here. They will have separate power on buttons also. Here's a vent for your AC and heat, which we'll go over. This large display over here, this is your engine data, your engine gauge. So it'll have fuel flow, fuel burn, fuel capacity, RPMs, battery capacity, etc. All the data for the power would be running through here. Now you also have trim tabs on this boat. They're going to have backlit illuminator indicators so you can determine what position your trim tabs are in. And then this boat is equipped with the digital shift. So what I tell my customers is if you align the shifter with the Yamaha label, that typically is in neutral. Okay, so it's a visual reference knowing you're in neutral. You also feel it click into a groove into place. Now if you rotate the lever back, that will engage the motor in reverse, back up to neutral, and then if you push the lever forward, that'll put it into forward gear. Now as you push the lever more forward, it'll give you more power and more speed. Also at the helm you have this little step. You push a button, pull the handle back, and then this will give you a place to rest your feet while you're sitting, or it'll give you a higher line of sight if you're operating the boat standing. Now in the bilge or machinery space in your Pursuit OS325, I want you to be understanding of what all these components are and what they do. First off, you have your table leg. That would mount right here. So once the table leg is in place, this would be your tabletop. The tabletop would simply rest on top of that. Under these hatches here, those are just for service. You don't need, as a boat owner, to get in there. That's basically that's exactly where the valves are to isolate your fuel tanks. That's all done by our service department, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, if you come take a closer look in your bilge area here, these are going to be your 10 micron fuel filters. They're fuel water separators. Your primer bulbs, which again you won't have to really touch, that's just for service when we first prime these motors. You have a freshwater pump with a sea strainer attached to it. Down here, this is going to be your diaphragm pump. Those are going to be the pumps that pump out your fish boxes, which are located on the port and starboard side. Now in the back you see a large box, that's your Fisher Panda generator. You have the muffler for it down here, the black cylinder. You have another fish box pump for the port side. This C-Star system you're seeing, that's going to be for your power steering pump for the motors. And then if you look in the back, Pursuit's really good about labeling all their through holes. Now as a boat owner, should understand what the through holes do and where they are. Now you can see the green handle, that one is closed. In an emergency situation, you're going to want to close all those through holes. If the boat's ever taking on water, you want to isolate the through holes to make sure that there isn't water coming in. The reason those valves are there is to be able to service your live wells and your salt water pumps. It has to take seawater from below the boat in to service those pumps. So now, and again, in an emergency situation, not knowing where any water would be coming from, the first thing you're going to want to do is isolate those valves and close those valves. Now on the back of your OS325 Pursuit, I want you to understand what these components are here. Now this is your shore power hookup. With the power cord supplied, when you buy the boat, you would plug this in, plug it into your shore power on your dock, and it would maintain the batteries. You could also run your air conditioning and heat systems and all your electrical systems from the dock power. This here is your freshwater inlet. So if you're living on the boat at your marina and you're showering quite a bit, using a lot of fresh water, instead of using the freshwater holding tank on the boat, you could use direct water from the dock. That would go direct to your hot water heater, which is an on-demand system, and then you would have hot water in your shower. This is simply just a bilge vent. You can see all the snaps on the transom here. That's going to be for the aft cover that it also comes with this boat as an option. It attaches up by the hardtop and the sail tracks that you see there, and then it'll come all the way down and snap along the transom here. This boat is equipped with a beautiful walkway to get port and starboard. Let's go take a look inside the boat. Now I'm going to take you through a walkthrough of the cockpit area of your Pursuit OS325. Now in the transom here, there's a storage bin, great place for small items like dock lines. But for serviceability, again, you may not need to do it, but for our technicians, this tray does pull out. It has a quick connect system on it for a drain. But there's another set of batteries back here. You actually have 3 batteries. You have your galvanic isolation transformer. That's going to separate your boat from any other power supply at your marina to avoid any galvanic corrosion. There is a main breaker back here. That's good to know if you're not getting power from your shore power. There is a main reset. And then there's a reservoir for your power steering pump. Again, most of the time you won't need to go in here. It's just for service, but as a boat owner, you should understand what all these components do. Now moving over, you have your live well. You just simply lift up hard. These little grommets catch in place. You catch a fluke, sea bass, anything you want to keep it alive, you simply flip the switch on the dash and it will pump salt water into this. You have the fold out seats on the transom and on the port side. If you come take a look in the cockpit over in the corner here, you'll have a main reset breaker. Again, if you're not getting shore power from the dock, you want to make sure this switch is on. A lot of people will miss that, so I wanted to point that out. You have fish boxes on the port and starboard side. You have steps going up to the bow. Now, this boat is equipped with a diesel generator, and it has its own diesel tank. So on the port side of the boat over here is the fuel fill for your diesel, and it is labeled. You also have a gasoline fill, which is showing red with a gasoline sign. So just make sure you're putting the fuel, the gas in the right spot and the diesel in the right spot. Here you have your Kenyan grill. You either need to be plugged into shore power to use this or running your generator to use this. You also have freshwater sink back here. In order to operate this, you have to have the freshwater switch on the dash on to pressurize the system. Little piece of corian to use as a cutting board. You have additional storage down below here. You have a shore power. If you're plugged into shore power or you're running your generator, you could plug in, say, a blender here and make drinks. This dial you see here is your thermostat control. That's an option on this boat. Not every OS325 will have this, but this boat is equipped with the chill plate under this seat. So you have the ability to freeze or cool any drinks. So under this seat, you can see there's a chill plate, and this knob would be the thermostat control for that chill plate. You also have a bucket for storage, and then behind here is a storage tray. These pins, Pursuit's really good about serviceability. They have these pins that simply pull out. This whole tray would pull out, so if our guys need to access additional battery storage or any of the components behind that, they could do so. Now, moving over to the starboard side, you have your courtesy light switch here. That's also located on the dash behind the boarding door. Pursuit Smart, they just use a simple magnet to keep that closed. You have your freshwater shower. If you come in from a swim, you could wash the salt out of your hair. You would have to pressurize the system by hitting the switch on the dash for fresh water. You also have a raw water connection. In your owner's bag, you'll have a quick connection coiled up hose to wash down any fish scales with salt water. You would have to activate the saltwater washdown switch on the dash to operate that also. You have rod storage underneath, cup holders, rod holders, large oversized pull-up cleats. And then up on the starboard side here, you have another fuel fill. You have a waste holding tank pump out. So if your head holding tank is full, that's where the pump out service would be pumping out the boat. And then all the way forward is your fresh water fill. So if you need to fill your holding tank with fresh water, you simply take your garden hose, undo that lid, stick it in there, let it pump until it overflows, and then you know your freshwater tank is full. Inside the bridge deck of the OS325 Pursuit, on the starboard side here, you have some miscellaneous storage, some tackle storage. Great place to keep little odds and ends, screwdrivers, fishing tackle, etc. come with me in the bridge deck and I'll show you some additional features. So hidden under this table, if you got the cockpit table option, is the bridge deck table and the table leg. That would slide into place here, and your guests would be able to entertain wine, cheese, crackers, etc. Overhead, you have grab handles for passengers to be holding on as the boat's underway. You have additional storage up above for the captain. You do have these Bomar hatches, which were an option on this boat to allow more air to come in. For serviceability on the dash, there are latches here. This whole dash will rotate forward to allow access behind to install electronics. Again, that's mostly for service. The boat owner, unless he's troubleshooting himself, he wouldn't have to typically get behind there. We'll take a look down below and show you some other systems. In the cabin of your Pursuit OS325, you have some switches here up on the bulkhead. You have accent lighting, you have dinette lights, you have a galley light, and you have reading lights. The other switch is your electric table. So now if you hit this switch, this table will go down electrically. Now that the table is all the way down, I'll show you how to deploy what's called the scissor berth. So this backrest is simply held by magnets. So you just separate the magnets from the wall, and then this bottom piece is on a track system. So you simply slide it. It's actually a very smart system, and this will slide all the way together. Same thing on the other side. And there's no need for a filler cushion. This is actually the largest berth in its class. So you have a large space here now, easy to deploy. And then in the morning when you wake up and you're ready to put it back, it's very easy. You just lift this up, slide this, and then the magnet catches in its place. Very easy to deploy your bed in your OS325 Pursuit. In the interior of OS325, you have your electrical panel for your generator and your air conditioning. So I'm going to walk you through what everything does down here. So you do have a blower. Okay, so this is a diesel generator, but it's smart to just turn the blower on, blow any fumes out of your bilge or machinery space. And then to start your generator, you give it power by hitting the on button, and then you it'll do a check to make sure everything's good, and then you just simply hit the start button. It'll fire that generator up, it'll keep track of your hours, and it'll make sure oil pressure and everything is where it should be. Now that the generator's running, you can run your air conditioning, you can run your heat. All your components will be energized from the generator's own power, so you don't have to be on shore power to operate those systems. You would need to separate from your main power to your generator power. You have a house charger, your engine charger, cabin air, and cooling pump. Now it's very important that the cooling pump, and there is a warning label, the cooling pump needs to be on to cool that generator. So that can always stay on. Your cabin air, these are just the main power switches. Then there's going to be your control panel for the heat and AC over here, which we'll go over in a second. So your main power for 120 volts would be on, and then you could slide this up to turn your generator on. So you're either going from your main battery supply or your generator power, and it's kind of dummy proof. So if you're shutting off your generator, then you would slide this down to turn your main on. Over on this side is your stove and your hot water heater. They put this warning on because you don't want to turn your hot water heater on with no water in it. You'll burn out that element. So you have to make sure that that hot water heater has water in it if you're turning on the hot water switch. Here's your switch for your cockpit air, cockpit grill, microwave, cockpit outlets, interior outlets, and entertainment. So basically all those can stay on with the exception of the hot water heater. Again, you want to make sure that has water in it. Now over here you have your systems for your cockpit air conditioning and heat, and then your cabin air conditioning and heat. It's pretty basic. You would just power it on, choose your temperature. Do you want it cold, hot? And it also has a dehumidify option. So if you're, say in August, it's very humid, you're not on the boat, you could simply turn on your dehumidifier option, and it would maintain the right humidity level inside your cabin, so it's not building mold or everything would be damp. It'll keep it nice and cool. It will kick on that AC as needed. You do have a water witch alarm. The bilge in this boat has a water witch sensor, which it'll detect high water. So you will get an alarm if there is a high water situation, and you would be able to mute it, test it. If you ever get a high water alarm, it's always smart to open that machinery space, check those valves that I was talking to you, make sure there's not water in there. If there is water in that machinery space, again, go back and close those valves, let the bilge pump catch up, and then you can kind of determine where your issue would be. But this will give you an alarm if there is a high water scenario. Any basic key will open this box and it'll rotate forward. That's just for service. So you do have a heat and AC vent here. You have a TV here. I recommend to my customers, you can get open air channels. If your marina offers like DirecTV or something, you could do that. An easy situation is to get a Roku or a Amazon Fire drive to put onto this, and then you could watch your movies from your boat. Continuing around, we have your galley area here. You're going to have your microwave, which will operate either from your generator power or shore power. You have a stove top with these little push-ups. These will keep a hot pot in place if you're underway from sliding off. You have a little bit of storage underneath. You have a hot and cold sink with a Corian cutting board. You have some storage behind. You also have some charge ports up top here. And then you have electrical plugs. Down below you have your stainless fridge and freezer. Additional storage in these drawers. In the sole you have a compartment just for service, and then behind the stairs is your middle bilge. You would be able to pull that lid to access your middle bilge pump and your sump pump. Now there would be a sump pump down there for the shower. As you take a shower, it'll drain into a sump box, and then there'll be a float switch with a bilge pump to pump that water overboard. Let's go take a look inside the head compartment. Inside the head compartment of your Pursuit OS325, pretty simple stuff. You have your interior light switch, your accent light switch. You have a vent here for your heat and AC. Behind your mirror, you have some storage and another electrical plug. You have a beautiful vessel sink with your shower slash faucet. If you plan on showering in here, you know, obviously you have your privacy, you have your hot water, you could do a quick rinse. It's not like at home where you're going to spend 20 minutes in the shower. You have to remember you're on a boat, so do a quick rinse. You do have some additional storage down below here, storage drawer. And then the head itself has this fiberglass shroud, so you can use it as a seat to shower or to change, but then you simply lift this up. The toilet lid will actually hold that into place. You can see when you power on the battery switch, you'll hear a pressurized pump running. It'll pressurize this system for the vacuum, for the toilet. So when your guests go to use the toilet, all they simply have to do is to press the pedal, okay? And then you can hear that pump building pressure again. Now, next to the toilet, you're going to have an illuminated indicator to tell you the exact level of the holding tank, whether it's empty, low, full. You're going to want to plan to have it pumped out as you start to approach that high level indicator. This boat is equipped with an overboard discharge pump, which means you legally have to be 8 miles from shore. You would open the valve in the bilge for your overboard discharge, and then you could come in here, turn the key to engage it, and then you would hit this switch here, and it would macerate the waste and deploy it overboard. So again, legally you have to be 8 miles from shore to do that. And that's basically it. You have some drains in the head. It's easy to clean. There's no carpeting. Everything's easy to wash. And this is the head compartment of your new OS325. In the aft berth of your Pursuit OS325, you're going to have a closet for storage. You have a switch for your accent lights, and then up above here you have additional rod holder storage. So these will simply flip down, and you could store more rods. The tips would go through these PVC tubes here, and when you're not storing additional rods, you simply flip those up and close the tabs. Now behind this cabinet here is just for service. Your amplifier, a lot of your electrical controls will be back there. So typically it's not something you have to get to all the time. You'll see there's a key switch, but anything will open it. A butter knife will turn it and open it, so it's not specifically for a certain key. Now if you come take a look on this other bulkhead on the starboard side, you have another air conditioning vent, you have a CO2 detector, and then behind that cabinet is access to the through hull valve for your overboard discharge. So again, to discharge the boat, you would have to discharge the waste tank, you would have to open that valve and then go back into the head, turn the key, and hit the overboard discharge macerator pump. There's additional storage to access your hot water heater and your freshwater tank under this, but that's more so for service. So this is a beautiful full-size aft berth for your guests. Now we're on the bow of your Pursuit OS325. Up on the hardtop you can see your air vents, you have a couple grab handles, you have an air horn. In the center, that's your open air antenna for your TV. You have a mast light which is folded down at the moment, and then you have an antenna that services your stereo and open air radio. Now this boat is equipped with a bow cushion, so that's stored down below right now, but it would snap into place, and then it has this sail track down here that it would slide into the groove. You also have another Bomar hatch if you want natural air to come through down below. You would open that from down below. You have your stainless grab handles. You could see your windshield wipers on that beautiful one-piece windshield. And then up in your anchor locker, you will have a remote that you can operate this windlass from up here. The remote will plug into that socket that will be in your owner's bag. You can also operate the windlass from the helm. Now, in order to operate the windlass, you first have to take off this safety cable, okay? You're gonna have plenty of road and chain stored down below. You wanna keep your fingers clear when operating that. Now, Pursuit does an excellent job. They supply raw water, so salt water, or freshwater wash up here at the anchor locker. So you would simply take your quick connection hose that's in your owner's kit, plug it into one of these, make sure the switch is on the dash, and you could spray any mud or sand off your anchor with either fresh or salt water. Up here is your navigation lights for port and starboard. Beautiful stainless bow rail. And this is the bow area of your Pursuit OS325.